Inverse Paradox, our company, has been around for about 10, 11 years. I've gotten to know most of the people in this room. There's a few new faces, so I'm hoping to get to know you a little bit better over a pint, which is going to be kind of awesome. Lots of trucks out there. But just real briefly, I want to tell you a little bit about what we do and where we're going as a company. So, 10 years ago when we started out, it was like, let's design and build websites. Let's do graphic design. Let's do pretty much anything somebody asks us to do. And I think that's probably relatable to everybody else in the room. And then as companies evolve, you start figuring out, how you start to differentiate, how you specialize, not to mention technology changes. For us as a company, we really found that our biggest areas of focus was the WordPress space, the e-commerce space, and then working in web and user interface design. Even more so nowadays, we're pivoting even harder into the e-commerce services, and we've had a lot of really great wins. Specifically, we started working out with Magento probably 10 years ago, and it was still an early version. We've seen it evolve. We've seen it go from, being acquired by eBay to spinning back out as an independent company to now it's owned by Adobe, which is super interesting. We see BigCommerce and Shopify, and then we saw WooCommerce go from this little plugin to actually being acquired by Automatic and growing to be such a substantial part of what WordPress fundamentally is. A lot of the work we do has grown significantly because of these systems, and it's been really exciting to watch. So as a company, we start realizing oh my God, we're turning into an e-commerce agency. How did that happen? We still love WordPress. We still love building content websites, but like everything else, we do a lot of landing pages and direct response online marketing, but things that have to do with retail really became our focus. So as a company, we work with people and a lot of other agencies on full service, sort of consulting work. We do the UX and UI design. We do all the development. We have a team of really fantastic in-house developers and in-house designers. We support and maintain the products we create, which I think everybody knows is probably one of the most useful parts of working with a client, is keeping that thing moving and steaming ahead, being powered to go ahead. The data migrations are probably the biggest nightmare ever, but we have to do them. And then we do a little bit of the market work, mostly things that focus around the products. We work on a lot of retention strategies, email marketing and automation, things like loyalty programs, because we really like being sort of user-centered and customer-centered in what we're doing. And then, of course, all the fun integrations. Now, in doing this, our e-commerce projects start diversifying a lot. And one of the things that we also do that's a little bit different is we're not just focused on building a store for a few different businesses, but getting in there and saying okay, what are the needs of a B2B? What are the needs of B2Bs and B2C hybrids? What are the needs of some bigger businesses that are going a little bit more, omni-channel with their approach, and they're still thinking about brick and mortar? We've had our hands on all of these, which has been kind of neat and exciting and has had a lot of different challenges. Some of the projects we've been able to work on are sites like Piper Classics, which right now is hosted it was hosted with WP Engine. It's got a full WooCommerce build out. It's pretty beefy. It's got a lot of different plugins to really push the limits. We have sites like Cardinal, which is actually a food service division where everything we do is actually for B2B purposes. So it's not retail at all. Or Magali, who went out there and said, what? A lot more people want our refrigerators that are sort of in the commercial space, commercial refrigerators are in a consumer space, or they want that consumer purchase experience. Plus, it also does facilitate the ability of going out and getting quotes and not just buying direct through the sort of general cart experience. And then there's clients like JoeFit, who we worked with, where they started out primarily as a wholesaler, and sort of what we heard about earlier, they decided to pivot and put their brand out front and center so that way more people could buy directly from them. And then now they even said, okay, let's open up actual stores. They have two, one in Florida and one in California, to help support their brand experience. And we were able to roll in and actually build a full point of sale experience that's driven by the e-commerce platform. So that way the customer gets sort of a fully in sync experience. Everything that's in the store happening in real time is being synchronized immediately online, and vice versa. So that way the customer's always connected to the brand. From there, we found that building partnerships would be absolutely one of the most important things we had to do. This sort of talk and thing we're doing here today is sort of representative of that. You know, we've been able to partner with folks like BigCommerce and WP Engine and pretty much everybody else that touches e-commerce because we knew that we need the technology, the platforms, the tools, and the knowledge to build better experiences for our customers and create better solutions. WP Engine and BigCommerce both have been two of the most, incredibly supportive partners out of all of these folks in this sort of chart. But we still have very strong relationships. And when we say we have a need or we have a challenge or something new we need to approach our customers with, they're right there supporting us, which is really cool to see. So what do we not do? Well, we don't do branding. That's never been our bag, right? And frankly, I don't want to do it. If we sit around just design logos all day long, I just would lose it. Doesn't excite me. We don't do a lot of on-site technology implementations. We're not an IT company, right? And then from there, we don't do the sort of internet marketing that's really about, bringing people inbound. We have partners for that. So, we don't do SEO, PPC, social, public relations work, et cetera. And obviously not hosting. That's why we have WP Engine as a partner. This really gears us up to build strong partnerships. So everybody in the room to us are people that could be a partner of Inverse Paradox. And as a company, as we've been pivoting and saying, like, how do we grow and how do we sort of redefine ourselves in the future, we see ourselves as a driver of the community. We want to bring together the different agencies. One of the things that we kind of learned from all these different partnerships is that even though there might be a little bit of competition amongst us, there's a lot of differentiation and sort of an ability to say, where do we specialize? And there's plenty of business out there for all of us, number one. And number two, that if we come together more frequently, we can bring out these really great partners to teach us a thing or two, like WP Engine and BigCommerce, so that way we can expand all of our practices. So when I told you earlier that to me, Humeville is a place that's all about community and there's a lot of history here, that to me was one of the reasons why I put the business here, because I want to build a community around technology and help support Philadelphia as a scene. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But a few key points there is we do provide partner pricing. So, we try to make it so that way our rates are flexible or we give referral kickbacks. We do have collaborative project management with our partners. So if we're working with an agency and it's your client, we're just an extension of your team. And then we have all this e-commerce subject matter expertise to offer. Our teams look something like this, where when we come in to work with you, we sort of dispatch the best players. So we actually sit down and look at who brings the most value to the table from our team to work with our client, and that could be for a lot of different reasons. It could be platform expertise. It could be that they worked with similar clients, or they may know a certain bit about a specific industry. And our belief is that the more that we bring our people to the table to engage in our client and engage in our partner, the better product we're going to create collaboratively. But we also like to explore, and we like to do things different, and we continue to grow and educate ourselves. Right now, where we've been focusing a lot of our attention has been right now doing some studies in UI animation and micro interactions, because we really want to create these more robust and fun experiences and things that you see in apps to really engage people's interests. A little bit more on the fun side, both of our clients in Chamonix Creek Brewing and Stone and Key Cellars is actually going to start working with us to produce an Inverse Paradox Merlot and then an Inverse Paradox Ale of some sort. We're still figuring out what that beer is going to be. If you guys aren't from this area, and the Chamonix Creek is maybe about 15 minutes away, and it's probably one of the best brewers in the region, and I'm sure their beers are on tap. So I'll talk faster so you can get to the beer. And then the other big one has been this whole WordPress and BigCommerce evolution. And of course, we're sitting there going, we got to build this on WP Engine, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about this WordPress and BigCommerce thing. I know you already heard a lot about it, but I want to talk about our journey of exploration, because I'm hoping that those of you in the room that maybe haven't touched this yet, you guys can say, okay, this is approachable. Let's get in the beta. Let's get our hands dirty. The current plugin was developed by Modern Tribe in partnership BigCommerce. Modern Tribe is a plugin developer. They're most well known for their calendar plugin, which is pretty robust. And I would say most of the websites where you see a calendar on it and it's WordPress, it's probably their product. We entered the developer beta right in June. In July, we started actually investing, or I'm sorry, we went into the developer beta in July, and then we started between July and now starting to work with this thing. And we've been pretty active in getting feedback. You know, we've been paying attention to the GitHub, seeing where the plugin's been going, and it's super exciting to see that we're hearing that like Monday it's going public or Tuesday of next week it's going public, because from what I understand, it's going to be quite a new version with a lot of new fun tools to it, which is going to be pretty great to see. And you know, the reason why we found this to be interesting is because this is more of an anecdote. It's not really like backed by any sort of data. It's as an agency, and what we've seen with our clients and what we've experienced is that there's this big sort of like platform gap thing that happens, right? And we see software as a service, Shopify and BigCommerce is sort of filling that gap. WooCommerce is great for super entry level. Drop it in, play with it on WordPress. It's a great platform. But then with Magento, when they went to version 2, really pushed the ball forward, and all of a sudden like alienated a lot of different people there from being able to get their hands dirty with it. And for us as an agency, it's been a real uphill battle working with it. And I think anybody here who deals with Magento kind of feels the same way. And I would argue now that the Adobe acquisition's happening and some of the things I'm seeing here, this whole gap between WooCommerce and Magento is going to go like way out here. But for us, we got into BigCommerce and Shopify as a way of filling it, because we said, you know, as a company, we want to be more platform neutral. So where does this have a place for us? And BigCommerce, Shopify have been great fill-ins. I'm not just saying this, but I like BigCommerce a little bit better. But if a person comes to me and says, I want Shopify, and I can't convince them to go elsewhere, I think any agency in this room would agree and say, sure, we'll do it. So we do. So, you know, of course, we got to say, well, what's our criticisms at this point in time? Remember, development beta. So these things are all positive criticisms. We found that, you know, right now there's still a lack of a documented roadmap, and I think it's beta. I'm sure within the next few weeks we're going to see a lot better things out of it. From there, just overall better documentation. You know, the developers are there sort of figuring it out as they go, because it is new, and I'm sure that, you know, everybody would from BigCommerce would admit, be like, yeah, it's in R&D. That's why it's development beta. From there, we saw some like basic issues with checkout linking. We saw a little bit of delay in syncing, a little bit of a delay in the syncing, and then you know, we want to see a lot more expansion in the actual settings. You have tons and tons and tons of settings sitting in BigCommerce, tons of settings sitting in WordPress. But then when we went in there, it was like one of those things where we looked at it and went, this is too easy. And therefore a little bit inflexible. And it's kind of like you want that like beginner mode versus advanced mode, right? But you look at it and go, well, we think we can get it there. The things that we found to be incredible benefits, and again, we're kind of being comparative against our knowledge of things like Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, was that it was a seamless experience. Just being able to put this plugin in, drop it in, and, you know, go and build out that store, it really did not take that big of an investment of time for us to like get a certain comfort with it. So that way down the road we can sit there and go, yeah, we're going to offer this. So like, there's no question it's going to be a thing. From there, it did work out of the box. It did sync quick. The HTML structure was great. The CSS structure was great. I mean, it's pretty clean. From there, all of your security stuff, the PCI compliance is all sitting on BigCommerce. And then for me, you know, I get a little screwy when I start seeing issues with speed. And, you know, don't get me wrong, WP Engine, generally, we never have issues with speed. But being real, like, you can cache the entire experience of a WordPress website to a point. All of a sudden, when you start talking about like your account functions, your checkout functions, those things can't really be readily cached. You can cache some blocks maybe, but it's pretty taxing on the server. And if you get a lot of concurrency, that thing's going to start dragging on you. Well, if all that's now in BigCommerce hands, not inside of your WordPress website, ultimately what I think happens is you can actually spend a little less on your server and your hosting, because all that stuff that's just becoming like really taxing is no longer there, right? It's happening in BigCommerce. And then lastly, which was really awesome, was I kind of had this like aha moment. You know, most of these platforms do have some sort of multi-channel capability where you can see things in eBay, Amazon, etc. but they don't necessarily have this multiple store capability. And this has been something that like Magento has held like, you know, one of their big selling propositions. Like the minute you have like different stores in different countries, or you have different brands and you want to have that sort of centralized backend, that's been like one of their like bread and butter type things. And to be honest, I've sold to that. That's usually been a differentiator, or a differentiation how we give decisions. But with this, I sit there and go, well, now we can build WordPress websites instead of Magento websites in a fraction of the time. It's a hell of a lot more agile. And our clients who can have everything built at the back end of BigCommerce just had that essentially centralized, and they could have dozens and dozens of stores sitting on the front end. And I was like, yeah, oh my God, this is going to be really different now, because when we build these stores, we don't need to jump them into something like Magento, where they're going from maybe like a $40,000 build up to like a $120,000 build, right? Maybe we go for 60, 70 and meet them in the middle. So, you know, it's encouraging to see that, because I think these things have to become easier because they're becoming more and more mainstream. Right. So now, you know, why BigCommerce with WordPress, in our opinion, and you know, we're a little biased, but we definitely think it benefits brand experiences. We've been working with these brands out there now where they're trying to get more of that sort of direct retail thing happening, which is really neat. From there, you know, your sites with these really significant CMS requirements. I'm sorry, just putting it out there. I have not seen an e-commerce platform really create a robust CMS experience that could ever compete with WordPress. I don't care who you are. And that's a big, big, big pain point as an agency. Every time I put a Magento site up there, I cringe when I get phone calls where the person's like, I forget how to edit this page, because I know that's going to be a 45-minute discussion, when in WordPress, it should be 5 minutes. From there, you get better performance out of your account and checkout, which is critical. Building this multi-channel retail out is a lot easier. And then from there, I really think about all the possibilities for custom applications in the future. That's what excites me. There are some limitations to the software as a service platforms as far as what you can do, because they don't want you to screw with their system. You're not going to see the database. You're not going to see the underpinnings of how everything works the way you would with open source. This whole hybrid approach allows you to have the best of both worlds, which is really neat. And we have several clients actually in the space of aftermarket auto, and clients that go and talk at SEMA, which is like a big November conference out in Las Vegas. And one of the things that we found is like, you know, just even the idea of like creating a really robust vehicle fitment system is really hard to accomplish in any context. But really, the tools that are out there right now for software as a service isn't really viable. And we're already noodling with like, well, we could pull this down, build this into WordPress, leveraging this full API, and now all of a sudden everybody's happy. And we could do it a heck of a lot cheaper than we could on like a Magento-based platform. And I also know that the WordPress database and the WooCommerce database couldn't hack it or handle this if you have that many products. So that's probably our next little fun project. Sorry, guys. A few of my devs are sitting in the back. And then from there, it's really about speed and delivery and making things more affordable. You know, don't get me wrong, agency, we all want to profit. We want to have business, but at the same time, I never feel good about feeling like I'm overcharging a client to deliver for them because of that whole gap thing that exists. I don't like that. I would rather deliver them what they need based on today and like, you know, reasonably into the future, because I sit there and go, if they're really successful with what they build, if they need to invest in bigger things down the road, that is because they're getting the ROI on what we're creating, right? So going back to platform gap and sort of our decisions as a company and how we view this, we brought in BigCommerce and Shopify to fill this void between WooCommerce and what's happening with Magento, because that's where we came from. But after doing this little bit of discovery over the last 3-4 months, and why we said, let's bring people together to sort of advocate for this, it's because honestly, we see the whole BigCommerce headless commerce, not just the WordPress side, as being able to really fill out almost this entire spectrum where you really don't need Shopify. You don't need WooCommerce. You don't need Magento. I mean, there might be a point where you do need something like Magento or even a bigger platform, but hopefully not that quick. And then beyond that, and you know, no offense, but probably don't even need the actual BigCommerce software as a service platform, because now you're untethered. You can do things that are really dynamic and diverse. I mean, that AR thing blows my brain a little bit, and I want to definitely play with that. So we're really excited about that and seeing where we're going in 2019. So So as a company, we've adopted these platforms, but we're kind of going out there formally and saying, Inverse Paradox isn't just approaching e-commerce in this neutral way, but we're definitely really excited to lean into our partnership with BigCommerce and do more of this, just because of all the different possibilities. So I have to put out a few other things. These are just a few commercials. So first, there's this old Philadelphia e-commerce meetup that about 3 or 4 years ago I inherited because it died. And there was this startup of like a Philadelphia e-commerce community. It was really cool. We need to bring it back. We need to make it happen. So this is kind of, to me, the unofficial start. We're doing a thing. I actually listed this up on the meetup group, and my hope is to create an educational platform where people can come out and learn about these types of things on a regular basis. Sometimes we might do it here. Sometimes we might do it at WeWork in Philly. Sometimes we might do it at Thomas Jefferson University's campus. We have the facilities and the resources to do this. I want to see agencies come out and tell stories of success and things that they did that's innovative with their customers. I want to bring out people that are in tech and the hosting providers and the platforms to educate people. And most importantly, I want to build that community. So this is that kickoff, whether you guys realize it or not. So thank you for attending the first meetup, Philly Ecom meetup. You're all going to get solicited a lot. I apologize. And then the second thing is at Thomas Jefferson University, in addition to everything I do here at University, also the department head of 4 programs at TJU that all have to do with visual and digital communications. So we have a bachelor's program in graphic design, a bachelor's program in animation, a bachelor's program in web design and development, which does include courses in WordPress design and development. And we have a master's program in user experience and interaction design. I invited out some of my students here today, and they made the trek from East Falls to come check this out and meet some of you guys. So if you see some youthful faces, most likely there's some of my students looking for jobs. So hire them. I'm always excited for those types of opportunities. And if you ever want to come talk to our students or you want to look for our students, that's definitely something I want to help you guys out with as well. So that's pretty much everything. Thank you so much for coming out, hearing these talks. We're going to hang out, have a good time. There's a bunch of food in the back. The Humeville is a wonderful place. And thank you, guys.